Hi everyone, I'm Mariana with 3PX Classroom. Thanks for joining me. And today I want to talk about the big one. That's right, language arts. So many teachers, myself included, struggle with wrapping their heads around the English Language Arts program of studies. And oftentimes I see this, especially nowadays in August. A lot of teachers are new to the grade or recent grads. They ask and say, hey, I'm wondering if I could see anybody's year plans or long-range plans so that I can see how you laid out language arts. I don't normally see other teachers asking to see math or science or social because those are pretty straightforward. We have units and we know exactly, we can see them sequentially, how we should lay them out. But language arts is so different and it's so difficult to wrap our heads around the entire program of studies. So, help. Where do you start, right? You hear these buzzwords like Daily 5. Let's use Daily 5, or Writer's Workshop, or Words Their Way, or ESL, reading comprehension, grammar, spelling tests, yay, nay. Where do we even begin? So, my hope is that by the end of this video, you feel a little more confident in wrapping your head around and planning your language arts long-range plans. Okay, so the first thing I want to make very clear is that the English Language Arts program of studies is all about communication, and that word is so important. Communication. It's not just simply reading and writing, but we also need to keep in mind that it's about listening and speaking, viewing and representing. And I know that that's drilled into us when we go to university, but as teachers, we quickly get wrapped up in reading and writing projects or assignments and activities, but we quickly forget that, watching a YouTube video on social studies could also cover a language arts outcome. So it's really important to remember that it's about communicating. What are the students communicating to others, and what is the video or the song or the poem, what is that communicating to the child? So it's really important for us to remember that. So how do you lay everything out for your language arts long-range plans? When do you teach grammar? Do you teach it explicitly? What about phonics? Do you do spelling tests? Yes or no? What about reading comprehension? How often should we be doing reading comprehension? Daily 5. Do you do Daily 5 on the daily? So I want to spend some time talking about the program of studies and also some of the resources that I have accumulated for language arts. And I will explain what I have found to be successful for me in my grade 3 class. Now, I have been teaching grade 3 for 5 years now, and I am in my 10th year of teaching. So I will show you what has been successful for me, and I'm always reflecting and I'm always revamping, but last year I felt like it was the first year that I was confident enough to mentor other teachers in language arts, and if parents had a question about anything, I felt super confident that I could explain my reasoning behind it. So I'm hoping to share some of that confidence with you guys today. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the program of studies because honestly that's quite boring, but what I do want to do is I want to share some tidbits and some tricks that I have learned that have helped me to plan my long-range language arts plans. So one thing I really liked about the program of studies is how all 5 of the general outcomes are laid out on this page. And so just the very first general outcome is students are going to explore thoughts, ideas, feelings, and experiences. So that's the first general outcome. So what does that mean? This is your talking, conversations, seeing their ideas, they're transforming, they're elaborating, they're active listening, they're discussing. It's all of those making connections, verbalizing their understandings. That's what this whole general outcome is about. So, what are some things that you can do in this for this outcome? Brainstorming, webbing, mind mapping, KWL charts, think, pair, shares, graffiti walls, placemat activities, 4 corners. 4 corners is awesome for defending your choice, by the way. Free writing, quick writing, making connections. That's all under the very first general outcome for language arts. So anytime that you plan something that involves discussion activities or think, pair, shares or brainstorming, that would fall under the general outcome 1. Now, the second outcome is comprehending and responding personally and critically to oral, print, and other media texts. That's a very fancy way of saying this is your reading and writing unit. So, reading comprehension, reader's response, author's purpose, word choice, writer's notebooks, story writing, your personal fictional narratives, poetry, dictionary skills, novel study. I like to do Charlie and the Chocolate Factory as my novel study. And so a lot of my outcomes that come from my Charlie and the Chocolate Factory novel study come from this second general outcome. So those are your big ones. Your reading and writing, novel study, all of that comes from the second general outcome. Your third outcome is managing ideas and information. This is your outcome to do with nonfiction and research topics. So any sort of project planning that you guys are doing in the class, if you have to evaluate sources of information, if you have to organize information. Right now on Google Slides, a lot of teachers like to do drag and drop activities. This is where your outcomes would be covered for those drag and drop sorting activities. If you have to identify what is a fact versus an opinion, this is where those outcomes are. Now, there's also an outcome in here which I find hilarious every time I read it, and it's using electronic card catalogs. Yeah, so keep in mind that our language arts program of studies was written in 2000, which as of today, that makes it 20 years old. So no, we don't use electronic card catalogs, and don't get hung up on that, but try to think of the modern day equivalent. So using websites or website text features. Those kinds of outcomes are all covered in your third general outcome here. The fourth one, this is enhancing clarity and artistry of communication. What does that mean? Well, this is your spelling unit. Your wordplay, editing, revising, capitals, punctuation, handwriting. It's also about presenting. So students need to have experience with presenting information in front of a class, in front of an audience. They also need experience being an audience. And what does that mean? This is also your conventions and your grammar outcomes. So all of that is in this fourth general outcome. And then the last one is really simple. It's group work. So this one I love because you can really easily embed other subject areas like social and science. And anytime you do any sort of group projects, you can really easily take LA, General Outcome 5 outcomes, and embed it in those other other subject areas to cross-curricular and cross-connect them. So now that we've gone over the program of studies and the 5 general outcomes, that should give you a better indication or a better idea of an outline of what is expected to be taught for the year in language arts. I do want to go over the resources that I use. Now, some of these I use regularly and some of them I don't use at all, but I did use in the past. So I'm really quickly going to go over these resources, and if you want to see these resources more in depth and how I use them more specifically, you can just leave me a comment and that can be a video that I can do another time. When I did teach grade 3, or when I was brought into grade 3, it was expected that we do Daily 5, and I know that Daily 5 is a buzzword that you hear a lot, and teachers are expected to do Daily 5, or this is a system that principals want to see. Daily 5 is a management system. So it doesn't cover your language arts program of studies. What it is a way of organizing your time so that you can efficiently cover outcomes from language arts. So basically there's 5 stations, we know that. There's reading to yourself, reading with somebody, listening to reading, working on writing, and word work. So all of those areas cover a lot of your program of studies. But before you can even do Daily 5, you have to do a lesson, or you have to instruct students in a mini lesson so that they can practice it successfully on their own in Daily 5. So I do use Daily 5 in my classroom, and I do Daily 5 at least twice a week. Sometimes I do it on a third day as well, and I'll get to my weekly plans at the end of this video. This month-by-month resource, month-by-month phonics resource, I use pretty much every other day in my class, if not daily. I love all the activities, and I love how it's laid out monthly, and I think it's a fantastic resource. I go a little bit more in detail about this resource when I talk about my grade 3 year plan. I did a video diving in deep into my grade 3 year plan, so if you haven't checked that video out, you can check it out. But I go in detail about this resource a little bit more and how much I love using this resource because it covers everything that I need to know about phonics in grade 3, including word walls. So highly recommend this book. Also in that previous video, I talk about my own personal resource that I created, a reader's notebook, a writer's notebook, and my grammar notebook. And within this resource, I use a resource that I purchased on Teachers Pay Teachers, and it's linked in my grade 3 year plan. The resource is linked there. But basically, I have created my own reading strategies notebook, writing strategies notebook, and grammar notebook. So anytime we talk about a new reading strategy, we put it in our reader's notebook. That way the students can reference it. So I use this book probably 3 times a week. Actually, no, I use it every day because we do either a reader's or a writer's notebook activity plus grammar. So we probably use these, if not every day, 4 days a week we use this resource that I've created. Talking about reading strategies, this is a fantastic resource for those of you who don't know where to start teaching reading strategies. This is a fantastic resource that gives you some examples of anchor charts that you can use, that you can create with your class. And it just goes over very explicit instruction on specific reading strategies. So if you are not sure where to start, this is a fantastic resource that covers kind of all the reading strategies that you could possibly need for teaching grade 3. She also has a writing strategies one, but I don't have that one. So this one I personally own, the other one I don't own. When I started grade 3, a teacher gave me this spelling booklet, and she actually went ahead and photocopied it and made multiple classroom copies, which I'm sure is not quite allowed. But I used it that first year, and I just found that this was just busy work, and it wasn't really engaging, and the students that were able to do it did it successfully and enjoyed it, and the kids that didn't really understand what they were doing really struggled with this book. So I will use certain pages out of this book to supplement my word work station if I'm missing something. But for the most part, this is just in case. I have this resource just in case I need a quick little worksheet or a quick little something to supplement my lessons. Traits of good writing. I purchased this resource. It was highly recommended. Again, I use this sometimes if I need to supplement a lesson on topic sentences or main idea or transitioning words or details. I will use this to supplement my lessons. I don't use this very often, but I have it in the back just in case. Same thing with this one, using picture books to teach writing. I love that this suggests different books that I could use as mentor text to teach the different traits of writing. And so I do like to look really quickly and see what kind of a book does it recommend. But for the most part, again, it just kind of sits on my shelf. If I remember to use it, great. If I don't, it's not the end of the world. This is my language arts textbook from university, and no, I don't use this regularly, but sometimes if I'm struggling on how can I, make my guided reading a little bit better, or if I can, if I'm confused about shared reading or buddy reading, I will look back sometimes at my textbook, but I just don't have the heart to give it away. I think that's what it mainly is. All right, and these last resources are ones that I do not use in my classroom, but I went to PD on them. So I have 6 books here. 3 of them are from when I went to PD for SIOP. And SIOP is basically strategies to teach English language learners. So I have 3 books on those strategies. I don't use them. I don't use the books. I do use the learning that I got from the PD, but I don't use these books. I can probably get rid of these books, but I don't have the heart to do that. And then the last thing is Words Their Way. Probably this is the one that everybody likes to get. I went to PD on Words Their Way, and unfortunately the lady that was instructing it, it was basically a selling session, so she treated it as if we needed to purchase everything. And so I didn't really get the gist of Words Their Way. I know a ton of grade 3 teachers that love Words Their Way and that have adapted it to use in their classroom. But for me, right now, I don't use Words Their Way. I found it to be a little bit overwhelming, to be quite frank and to be quite honest. The one thing that I do like is the sorting. And so this book right here has a bunch of different sorts, sorting based on different rhyming words and things. So I do like that aspect of it. maybe what I need to do is I just need to sit down one summer and really give these books a read and wrap my head around words their way. If you have a great way to teach words their way, or if you have a great video that can explain this to me, please let me know in the videos below, because I have awesome resources. I just don't use it. So anyways, those are my resources that I use in my classroom. And I highly recommend that you get that phonics one, because that one has been a complete life changer. So now I want to really quickly tell you about how I laid my language arts program of studies out, my long range plans and my short range plans. So my weekly plans, how does that look like? Okay, so now that we've talked about program of studies and now that we have all of the resources covered, I want to talk about my long range plans and what's worked for me, and my short range plans and what has worked for me. So I have my grade 3 year plan here. It's up on my TPT store in case you're interested. And this is what my September looks like. And if I zoom in to my September, you can see that I have laid it out by weeks. And my language arts specifically is broken up into my reading strategies, my writing strategies, my word wall words. I just don't want to forget my word wall words, and my grammar. What is my grammar focus for that month? Or for that week, I should say. And all of my language arts lessons, if they are directly related to a program of studies outcome, I have it directly listed. And what I did this summer is I actually listed every single program of studies outcome in my year plan, so that I knew by the end of June I have covered every single language arts program of studies outcome, at least in language arts. Which means that in social studies, for example, when we're talking about cultures, there is an outcome in your program of studies where it talks about examining traditions and cultures from personal experience to other texts, and that directly relates to our social studies curriculum. So I have laid that all out. And what I also did is I have a focus for the month. So for example, in September, my reading strategy focus is making connections. And that talks a lot about that first general outcome that we talked about. That's my making connections. And in writing, my craft, something that I want to focus on in my craft, is generating ideas in writing, which is your mind mapping, your brainstorming, writing down ideas, things like that. That covers a lot of my general outcome 1 as well. And then word wall words, I mean, that's your general outcome 4. And same thing with grammar, general outcome 4. So then what I did is I went ahead and I looked at my program of study specifically, and I said, okay, what are the specifics in grammar that I need to teach about? So capitalizations, that is an outcome, and we start with that in grade 3. Nouns, verbs, adjectives, those kinds of things. I laid them all out in my year plan. So that is my long range plan. And just really quickly, my short range plans, I'll throw them up on the screen, but you can see here that this was an example from last year. These were my weekly plans and the subjects and what I dedicated the time to. And you're gonna see that I taught language arts from the first bell to the recess bell. So every day, all morning long until that first recess bell was always language arts, except for, you can see I have phys ed on a couple days. Those are just assigned to me, so I can't change that. But you'll see on Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, I liked to talk about phonics. So that's where that resource came in handy. We did phonics instruction. Now, I either chose to do it as a whole group if I thought it was beneficial as a whole group instruction, or I might have chosen to do it as a small group activity within my daily 5. It was, I decided that kind of like weekly. Every day there was either a writing or a reading or a writing strategy that I wanted to talk about, which again was our notebooks. So am I talking about making connections? Am I talking about, oh boy, I can't think of anything off the spot right now. Let me see. Let's see. Just write books, making connections, using prior knowledge, read to self, what does that look like? Visualizing, what does that look like? So I used an idea here, and we would make an anchor chart, and then we would talk about it, and we would have a mentor text, and we would reinforce that strategy all week long. And then what I would do is typically on Wednesdays, and Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I typically did daily 5, because that gave me the chance on Monday and Tuesday to really reinforce and teach the strategy. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I was using that strategy in my daily 5 in my individual activities. So we talked about the program of studies. We talked about the 5 general outcomes in language arts. We talked about long range plans and short range plans. We talked about daily 5. What about spelling tests? Do you do spelling tests? I have decided not to do spelling tests in my classroom because I feel that it's more effective if we do word wall words and the students are forced to make sure that those word wall words are spelled correctly every time they do writing in the classroom. I think that's a lot more effective and efficient at them remembering how to spell those words. So just in the short theory, I don't think that spelling tests are effective, but that's personal preference to me. If they work for you and it works for your students, then that's fantastic. And I'd love to hear that actually. So yeah, we've talked about that. We talked about some resources that I absolutely love and that I use quite frequently in my classroom. And we talked a little bit about my grade 3 long range plans and how I have my entire language arts curriculum laid out and linked and all the outcomes are covered. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful for you. I hope it made sense of the language arts curriculum. If you have any questions, you can leave me a comment below, and I'd love to answer them for you. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye. And just as a PS, I know that I really quickly skimmed over a lot of the resources that I shared with you, and I really quickly skimmed over my grade 3 year plan. If there is something that you want to see that's more detailed, like if you really want me to dive into the phonics resource, or if you really want to know more about how I do my readers strategies, my reading strategies and my writing strategies and my grammar lessons in my notebook, please let me know and I can do a quick little video on that going more into detail because I really quickly skimmed over it here just to give you guys a general idea on how you can better wrap your heads around the language arts program of studies. So let me know if that's something that you're interested in.